All right, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Got Mitch on the line, Mitch on the chat. First one, as expected. Hunter, how's it going? Scott, good evening, man. Enjoyed talking to you today about the new hires and the changes going on at Baylor. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. Nicholas Thompson, what's going on? Good to see you. Everybody else that's soon to join us, already 10 people up there. Glad to have you guys. Super pumped to have you. I know if you followed us on Twitter, we said we were going to jump on at 10 o'clock Central Time. Had a bit of a change in plans. Some things got shifted around, and why not jump on earlier? Gives us a little bit more time to hang out, gives us a little bit more time to talk football, and certainly take your calls and as many questions as we can get to in the chat as well. So again, if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. If you're not joining us for the first time, like many of you are not, so good to have you back, and we look forward to talking with you as long as we can tonight. So let's see who else we've got on here. Stephen Smith, how's it going? Carter Skelton, Marlin, Ohio State, big upset always. And hey, I'm happy to give you as much money as you can, Marlon. I'm glad you're able to use our picks to get yourself some money out there. It's one of our best seasons we've had here at the Gridiron Expert, both money line and against the spread. So keep it up. I'm glad you've been following us. Glad to bring you back. And Happy New Year's, guys. We didn't do a New Year's post per se, but a couple days into this new year now, and I hope it's going well for everybody. And it can't be, fingers crossed, worse than what we dealt with in 2020. So, we battled through it. We all kind of had our differences. We didn't know we were going to have college football. A lot of you, including myself, were sent home from school. Maybe you lost jobs or you had to work from home. We had to deal with a bunch of different changes, so much uncertainty, and yet here we are. Look at it, 2021. Right now, better than ever. And, my thoughts and prayers go out with every single one of you guys, and hope that things go well in this next year. It's a long year ahead of us, but I'm feeling pretty dang good about it. So let's get that out of the way. I'm going to open up the lines here in a little bit, the call line. So, Hunter, it is going to be a call-in show. We're going to try to mix and match here, get as much as we can through the phones, but also as much as we can on the chat. If we don't get to your question in the chat at one point, we're going to go back and find it. We're going to go back and take a look at it. So I'm going to hand to a couple of questions real quick. Carter Skelton, do I think Florida will be good next year? Yeah, they're going to be fine. As long as Dan Mullen's there, they're going to be fine. But I will tell you, Carter, yes, losing so much is a big deal. You lose Trask, you're going to lose Pitts, lose Tony, you lose Grimes. I mean, you're losing your entire offense pretty much, and that is a cause of concern. And recruiting isn't going to get any better when your coach goes out there and says that the guys that played in the Cotton Bowl were scout team players and that, we didn't really care. I mean, what kind of message does that send to the players that did play in that Cotton Bowl? And what kind of message does that send to future recruits for Florida? I don't know if I want to go play for a guy that views me as a scout team player, or if he's going to criticize my effort out there in a New Year's Six bowl game. A lot of those guys, look, they're not starters. Those guys weren't Kyle Pitts, and they weren't Tony, and they weren't Grimes. I get that, but they had their opportunity. And so to get out there and criticize by your coach like that, you lose by, 35 to Oklahoma, and you're going to be called a practice squad guy and a guy that didn't put much forth of an effort, and, we only cared about that championship. We lost the championship. We gave up. And what message does that send, and the type of culture that you're building down in Gainesville? So you're going to be fine. I'm not saying you're going to be as good as you were this year, but they're not going to have a horrible, horrible drop-off. That offense will be fine. I'm not too worried about it. Eddie Rose, my thoughts on Auburn hiring Brian Harsin. We'll certainly talk a lot about some coaching changes either through the phone lines or here in the chat. But I think Harsin was a solid hire. He's a guy that's been on the market for a while now. Everybody's been trying to steal him away from Boise. He just took the right place. I'm surprised he took the job, and I think Auburn could have done better. Harsin was not Auburn's first choice, and anybody that tells you that is lying to you. Auburn wanted Billy Napier from Louisiana. They looked at Bill Clark from UAB. They wanted a big name to come to Auburn, and whether it was an up-and-comer or a guy that's been proven at a Power 5 level, none of them wanted to go to Auburn. Why would you? You got to play Nick Saban every year. And Auburn fans believe they should win a national championship every year, and that's just ridiculous. That's just not going to happen. So, you want to contend, but to say you should be in the playoff or competing for a title every year, that's ridiculous, especially when you're in the SEC West, unless you're Alabama. So Harsin's going to have his work cut out for him. It's a solid hire. but he's going to struggle for the first year or two. I don't expect immediate success from Brian Harsin. Stephen Smith, hey, thank you so much. Right off the bat, thank you so much for the super chat donation. Hey, really, really means a lot. And again, guys, that stuff goes a long way for us, thrown right back into the channel. So, Stephen, thank you so much. And again, what are your thoughts of the Big 12 going 5-0 in bowl season? It's fantastic. The Big 12 gets a lot of hate, Stephen, and you know that. They get a lot of hate. A conference that doesn't play defense, a conference that would never, they would say, compete with the SEC and stuff because they're basing that off of Oklahoma's performances in the last few playoffs, to Alabama, to LSU. They had one good showing against Georgia in that Rose Bowl. But to have an Iowa State team go into the Fiesta Bowl and dominate, not just beat, but dominate from start to finish the Pac-12 champions. I don't care if they were 4-2 or not. They still won the Pac-12 over a solid USC team. That's a big deal. Oklahoma State taking down Miami. That was a thriller, especially when De'Aaron King went out. That was a thrilling game, but Oklahoma State got the job done. When you look at the rest, Oklahoma obviously annihilating Florida in another New Year's Six bowl game. Those are big performances, and you can't dispute that. You can't say they got lucky, or it's because the opponents they played had players sitting out, because you use that excuse for Florida all you want. We picked Florida. We picked Florida before all of the opt-outs. That wasn't a matter of them not, their players opting out. That was a matter of them not caring and not trying. That was pitiful. Oklahoma was the better team from start to finish that day. So not only did the Big 12 go 5-0 in bowl season, they did it convincingly, and they did it at the biggest level that they could outside of the playoffs. So I think it's huge, Stephen. I think that's a huge deal. Does wonders for the conference. And for the next few years, the Big 12 is going to be tough. And in the next few years, the Big 12 is going to get a team back in the playoff. Could be Oklahoma. Could be Iowa State. I'm serious. Matt Campbell's building something down there in Ames. And if you haven't hopped on that bandwagon, you might want to hurry up and do so. So the Big 12's legit. It could be Oklahoma. Could be Iowa State. Could be Texas. Now they've hired Steve Sarkisian for Alabama. Don't expect that in year one, but year 3 or 4, if they give him that long. Texas has been they've given their coaches a short leash. Charlie Strong didn't get that much time. Tom Herman didn't get that much time. So, I don't know what Texas expects. What does Texas expect? The Big 12's improving. The nation's improving. You're going to continuously be competing, recruiting-wise and on the field, against Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, guys like that. Texas hasn't really been relevant since, the last time they made a national championship back in 08-09, when they fell to Alabama out in the Rose Bowl. I mean, it takes time, and it's very hard to get to that point. And I know they want to win Big 12 championships and be competing. Texas should be able to be a team that can do that. But they got to be patient. If you cycle through coaches every 3 or 4 years, you're never going to get anywhere. And I would think and hope Texas has learned their lesson by now. All right, we're about to open up the phone lines. I want to run through the last few comments here before we go. Cyclone Mitch, tough decision for Kellen Moore to go to Boise or stay in the NFL. That was a super tough decision. Actually surprised he did not take the Boise State job. I know the NFL is a better gig in terms of the level of competition, maybe the pay too. But to go back to your alma mater and be the head coach, and also with the rumors that Boise State soon, not this upcoming year, but soon, could be moving to the American Athletic, that would have been a good job. So I guess Kellen Moore felt compelled to stay with Dallas right now. Maybe he feels that he could eventually get an NFL head coaching job. Maybe he feels he could get a better OC job in the NFL. I don't know. But that was a very tough decision. I'm actually surprised he didn't seize that opportunity. Because I think most people would have. And Boise State would have paid the money, too. They're one of those perennial Power 5 programs that plays well enough that he would have gotten some good money had he gone back there. Let's see what here. Eddie Rose, Missouri. He thinks they can beat Florida next year. I'm not going to dispute it. I'm not going to argue that. I think it could happen. Missouri is certainly one of the biggest surprises, I would say, in 2020. See, I saw him come in a second ago. Where is he? Talk is Pitt, Gridiron Expert. How are things? I'm good. Doing fantastic. It's been a while since we've seen you, my man. I hope everything's going well on your channel. I know not getting to watch Pittsburgh in a bowl game was disappointing. I know this year as a whole was kind of disappointing, but good to have you back. And we'll certainly be talking plenty of Pitt football over the following months. About to dive into this offseason. Nicholas Thompson, we kind of broke down Steve Sarkisian at Texas. We'll talk about it more later. Stewie 1323. What do I think about A&M? Should they have made the playoffs? No. Look, I'm sorry. Look, whoever had played Alabama was going to get annihilated. So Notre Dame got killed by 17. I think Notre Dame gave Alabama the toughest test they could have asked for. They held Alabama to their lowest point total this year, 31. They dropped 14 points on them, which to a lot of people is not a lot, but for Alabama standards, that's a lot of points. 2 touchdowns. 31-14. If A&M had played Alabama, they would have gotten crushed, just like the last time. Cincinnati plays them, would have gotten crushed. Georgia played them, would have gotten crushed. I don't know a team that would have hung with Alabama in that semifinal round. You know, and I say A&M didn't deserve to go because look at how bad they played against North Carolina. They won, yes, they won by 14. But let's keep in mind, North Carolina did not have their top 2 rushers, their leading tackler, their leading wide receiver, and UNC still hung in that game and honestly probably should have won that game. The fact they couldn't pick up 1 yard, second down, third down, fourth down, couldn't pick up 1 yard blows my mind. Great job of the A&M defense, but that game probably should have been a blowout in favor of the Aggies. And they fooled around and kept that game a little too close. So I don't think they should have made the playoffs because I think they would have gotten murdered. But having said that, I think anybody that would have played Bama in that first round would have gotten murdered. So, look, A&M, the future is very bright for them. Jimbo's building something there. I know they're going to lose a bunch of key starters going forward, but he'll get them there. Look, he didn't sign him to a 10-year, $75 million contract for nothing. He's got to start producing results. This was his best year yet. And eventually, all he has to do is beat Alabama. You beat them in the regular season, you control your destiny in the SEC West. And if they can get over that hump, I think the Aggies can win the SEC West. So whether that's next year or 2 years, I don't know. But they're getting there. They're absolutely getting there. All right, let's go ahead and open up the phone lines real quick. I know a lot of people have got a late night. I know a lot of people have got an early morning. So we're going to try to get through as many, again, comments here in the chat. If we don't get to it immediately, we're going to cycle back through. We're going to look at them, and we're going to take as many calls as we can as well. So I'm going to put the number in here a handful of times tonight, and we'll get going. 901-297-4545. That is the call-in number here, the Gridiron Expert. Dontron Plays, what's up? Good to have you. Christopher Simmons, always a loyal subscriber, loyal commenter, big-time Alabama fan too. Bama and Ohio State will be close. Bama wins 48-41. I don't know if I can argue that. Our national championship prediction, guys, will be...
To accept, press 1.
And let's do this.
Call from...
Cycle.
All right, Mitch, we're going to put you on hold for 1 second. We're going to get to Hunter, and then we're going to get right back to you.
All right.
Well, never mind. I think Hunter hung up. Hunter, if you're still with us, we'll call you back in a second, or you give us a call back. But Mitch, how's it going?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty dang good. I'm not going to lie. It's been a hectic last few weeks, as I know it's been for everybody, but ready to get the ball rolling on this one.
Yep, it's been a pretty good week for me. Obviously, Iowa State won the Fiesta Bowl in a dominating fashion, 17-point victory.
Yeah, and you called that. Guys, I don't know if you saw, Mitch commented a couple weeks ago, or last week when we put our Fiesta Bowl prediction, you had that 17-point victory, which is pretty dang impressive.
Yeah, I knew we were going to beat them by at least a touchdown or more because I just didn't think Oregon was that physical of a team against this physical Iowa State team.
Yeah, Oregon just was one of those cases, as it's been the case with many teams this year. You didn't know what to expect. They were 4-2. They shouldn't have been in the Pac-12 championship to begin with. And I genuinely think, you talk about being physical. I think Iowa State, having played 5 more games than Oregon, I think that played a major role in this one. And they showed it. I mean, from start to finish, they dominated that game, and it was refreshing to see, especially for how devastating that Big 12 title loss was.
Oh, definitely. And going to Dallas and seeing Purdy for the interception was just heartbreaking, but I'm glad we made up for a win in Phoenix to get that first New Year's Six win in Iowa State history. Yeah,
100%. What a way to do it, too. I mean, this was a year, again, no one really took Iowa State seriously. They kind of, they might win 7 games or 6 games with an all-conference schedule, but no one thought they were going to be that great. And then here they go, Big 12 title. They were play away from winning that. And really, if they win that and beat Louisiana, they're in the playoff. And then they still made the first New Year's Six Bowl and won that over a conference champion. I mean, again, that's unreal, man. That 5-star culture that Campbell's implementing there is paying off big time. And I think next year they're absolutely a Big 12 title favorite, no doubt in my mind.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, I want to dig deep into the Texas hiring of Steve Sarkisian, Alabama offensive coordinator, and I was thinking why Steve Sarkisian was so conservative in the second half versus Notre Dame. Like, he just ran the ball. Like, if he wanted to, he could have ran up the score in Notre Dame, let's be honest.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing. Alabama had 31 points. Notre Dame defense was solid, but had they continued to air it out like we all know they can, it very well could have been a 52-14 type of game. I look at that, and I think part of the reason he got conservative was Alabama, they'll never admit it, they knew they had the game in the bag before they even stepped on the field. Everybody knew they were going to win that game. And that brief Devontae Smith injury scare where he dove into the end zone and landed kind of hard on his back, I almost wonder if that played a factor because they knew they'd be in deep trouble if he was going to be out for that championship game.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of, guess who's coming back? Jalen Waddle.
At what it sounded like right now, he's back in practice. There's a very good chance he could be back in time for Monday. I mean, if you're practicing, there's a good chance. So, yeah, and even if the beauty of this, guys, with as great as Nick Saban is, Jalen Waddle, even if he's not 100%, you get him suited up, someone's got to go out there and guard him. Someone's got to be on him. Even if he's just being used as a decoy, he's going to be a threat to that Ohio State defense one way or another. So, but if he's back, it's a shoe-in. Alabama's got this.
Oh, yeah, and I think no doubt Devontae Smith is a Heisman winner, and I think Alabama's going to beat Ohio State in the national championship game. I think Alabama's offensive line is much better than Clemson's. Clemson's offensive line did not do that well versus an elite Ohio State defensive line, but I think Alabama's offensive line is pretty elite, and they replaced their center, Landon. I forgot what his last name is.
Yeah, Landon Dickerson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is a key too. If you look at the statistics on both defensive sides of the ball for Alabama and Ohio State, the pass rush for Alabama is ridiculous. Ohio State is too, but I do wonder what kind of role that is going to play here. Again, you talk about games that have been played. Alabama's played the amount of games that Ohio State's played, and you can't help but wonder if that's going to play a big role on Monday.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, of course, Sark is calling his last plays for Alabama. I'm sure he wants to go out with a national title under his belt heading into the Texas job. And the good thing about him going to Texas is that he's going to retain a lot of Tom Herman's staff, which Tom Herman's staff was really elite.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing to me is Tom Herman did a great job of bringing in former head coaches and guys that could help him out in the right way, and yet they got rid of him a little too early. I think he'll retain some of the staff. Sark's going to bring in some of his own guys for sure, but if he goes out there and wins the Natty on Monday, he's going to have a huge recruiting edge right off the bat, right before signing day in February.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And Texas just brought back their running back coach, which is a great thing for Bijan Robinson, as he's going to be one of the best running backs in the country going into next year. And then, of course, you got Cade Thompson, who just went off versus Colorado, and which is a good start to his career because he needs that confidence.
Well, exactly. And it's a perfect fit for Sark's offense, too. So this Texas team is going to be dangerous. Again, might not be right off the bat in year one. Give him some time though, and they're gonna be legit. I think Sark is an excellent hire. He's learning under Saban, obviously a huge boost. He has prior head coaching experience at USC and Washington. That's a huge boost. This was a very surprising but great hire by Texas, 100%.
Yeah, and the key thing is to the hire is that they had Sark lined up when they fired Herman. Like, obviously with Auburn, they couldn't find a coach in like a month, but with Texas, they just found a coach right away.
Yes, well, and that's the thing. If you're going to make that change, if you're going to make a firing, you need to have a short list or a guy already locked up. Especially if you're a school like Auburn or Texas. Texas handled theirs the right way. They were smart in their hiring. Auburn was not. They fired Gus Malzahn. Maybe had their guy in place, but didn't have the deal already inked, and that backfired on them. So I do give Texas a lot of credit for how they handled it. I don't like that they told Herman his job was safe and then decided to fire him after that anyways. But it's a tough business, and that's what you got to deal with. Your job is never safe, just like a quarterback. You're always fighting for your job every day. And I think when they realized that Sark was interested, it was too good a deal to pass up. They needed a fresh look, and I really do think it's going to pay off for him. I think this was one of the better hires of this entire offseason.
Oh, yeah. My first thought is I love the hire with Sark, obviously, going into basically the Nick Saban rehab is basically where all the coaches go when they get fired.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, well, they're going to be set. They're going to be set. I'm looking forward to it, and we're going to break down this hire and a lot more down the road. We're going to have a whole video series based on the new hires, kind of like we did last year, and you can guarantee Sark's going to be up at the top of that list.
Oh, yeah, definitely. All right, it was nice talking to you, my friend.
Hey, you too, Mitch. Take care, and good luck tomorrow with the early lift.
Yes, sir. Go Cyclones.
You got it, man. Talk to you soon.
Yep.
All right, that was our good friend Cyclone Mitch. You've been here on the channel for a while. You know him. Probably heard from him. Diehard Cyclones fan, and always enjoy getting his input on. See if we can get Hunter on the line here. Is this Hunter 5657?
Indeed, you have the name right, my sir.
That's what I thought. I'm picking up on where people are from based on the caller ID. So, Seneca, South Carolina. Hunter, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I just have a lot of things to break down. Draft stock and all of these new hires, bowl games, and a lot of things.
Sure. Lay it on us. What you got?
All right. We're on your things. Where do you think that the top 5 draft stocks will go? Do you think Penei Sewell will go top 5? Trey Lance, the BYU quarterback Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence, or Justin Fields?
It's going to be interesting to see where how the draft lines up, Hunter, in terms of teams. We know the Jags have the first pick, the Dolphins have the third. I think the Jets have the second, but I think your top three. I think your top 3 are going to be Trevor Lawrence at 1, Justin Fields at 2, Penei at 3, and then after that, it's kind of a crapshoot. It's going to be interesting to see where everybody else falls and if there are any trades that are made. I would expect Devontae Smith will be a first-round pick. Kyle Pitts will be a first-round pick. You might see Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. They will all go in the first or second rounds, but maybe not top 10. It's going to really come down to which teams are selecting and what their team needs are. But I think if the top 3 stay the way they are right now, it'll be Lawrence, it'll be Justin Fields, and then it'll be Penei from Oregon on the offensive line. Desperately need some help up there to protect Tua.
All right, now we need to talk about bowl game embarrassment.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it, but we're going to have to talk about the Fiesta Bowl.
Wait, was that FCS football?
Not the Fiesta Bowl, the college football semifinals.
Okay, all right. What about it?
Let's talk about the embarrassment that Clemson made against Ohio State.
Well, I think with that, well, go ahead. What's your input, Hunter?
One thing that we need to do is we need to go and recruit a lot amount of players. We need to recruit offensive line, a new running back, and defense. That's it.
Well, so you're just saying that Clemson needs to rebuild fully then?
Basically, like you said a year ago, that Clemson doesn't rebuild, they restock, but I think we might actually have to rebuild.
I think they're going to go through a minor rebuild. They're still going to restock because of how great Dabo does at recruiting and because of who Clemson is. They are still the top team in the ACC, and that's going to be undisputed for a long time. But you're going to lose one of the greatest quarterbacks in college football history. You're going to lose Trevor Lawrence. You're going to lose Travis Etienne. You're going to lose a handful of receivers. You're going to lose some great defensive stars. And And obviously that defense has a lot to figure out after how bad they got burned against Ohio State, allowing nearly 700 yards of offense in that Sugar Bowl. So in a way, they are going to go through a minor rebuild. The crazy thing is, for most teams, that means maybe barely making a bowl game or taking a major step back. Clemson will go through some growing pains, and yet will still be a playoff contender in 21 and over the course of the entire 21 season. But I am most interested to see. I have faith in Brent Venables. I mean, what we saw from him against Ohio State was so uncharacteristic. We've never, to me, really seen a defensive performance that bad from Clemson. And I think he'll figure things out. What I'm more interested to see is how they rebuild offensively, because you lose practically your entire offense, and that's going to be, to me, the major cause of concern. Although DJ Uiagalelei is the future for them, one of those recruits that we've talked about, and he looked just fine in that game against Boston College and Notre Dame, and I think the future is going to be very bright with him.
All right, so I just have a couple things to ask about these rankings next year. Do you think Clemson will be top 4 next year?
I think they will be a top 4, top 5 team to start. And I think, in theory, they should run the table in the ACC. Now, keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, they opened the season against Georgia in 2021. And it hopefully...
Yes, they do, actually. It's the 4-year tradition where we go against Georgia. Last year, we got railed by Nick Chubb in the running game, and we need to stop that next year. Because, I mean, they still got a great running back. I mean, they got that QB from the Netflix show that's from Oklahoma, I forgot.
Now, they got JT Daniels down at Georgia, and he's a big rising star, and the offense is drastically different with JT Daniels under center. And hopefully, barring, another major COVID breakout, hopefully things get back to normal and we get to see some non-conference games that we haven't been able to see, that we didn't get to see this past year. But that's going to be your first true test. I mean, how Clemson looks against Georgia, who's a national title favorite 100% going into 2021, that's going to be your benchmark. Because Clemson will wipe the floor in the ACC. I don't know a team that can challenge them other than maybe Miami, who's getting there but not quite, and North Carolina. Those are the only 2 teams that could challenge them. So how they fare against Georgia, another top 4 team, even if Clemson loses that game, if they lose in a close one, it's still going to show they deserve to be a top 5 caliber team. If they struggle mightily, like they did against Ohio State, it's going to be time to hit the reset button and maybe a little bit of panic going on down in Death Valley.
So, let's start talking about some of these sleeper teams that are going to be here next year, like Liberty and Coastal Carolina. Where do you see them going next year?
Well, I tell you what, South Carolina, Hunter, is an anomaly with Frank Beamer coming over. I don't really know what to expect from him. He's put together a very solid staff with South Carolina, but when you talk about lack of talent, that is what South Carolina has. They're going to be struggling mightily outside of Kevin Harris at running back. So don't know if they'd be considered a sleeper team. Shane Beamer. Thank you, Hunter. My mistake.
Wait, you said South Carolina. I said Coastal Carolina.
Oh, I thought you said Coastal and South Carolina.
No, I'm talking about Coastal Carolina because, I mean, they choked hard in one of the bowl games, and that's just going to not do well with the College Football Playoff Committee. I think they're just going to put them unranked.
Hunter, I think Coastal Carolina is not a one and done. I think Coastal Carolina is the real deal because they've got this guy, as you know, they've got Grayson McCall, and he's the real deal at quarterback. He's only a freshman, and he played lights out football. So I think Coastal's going to be just fine. The Sun Belt's ever improving, and they're going to have a lot of their returning talent coming back in 21. So I think Coastal's still a New Year's Six bowl contender. I don't know if they can run the table in the regular season that they did this year, but I do think they're going to be a top 25 team for most of 2021. Same can go for Liberty. What Hugh Freeze has done there should not go, unnoticed. It should not go unnoticed. He has transformed that team into one of the better group of 5 teams out there. So as long as their offense keeps rolling like they did this year, the defense is only going to get better. It was bad, pretty mediocre last year. It's been pretty dang good this year. Year 3, I expect it to be even better. So both those teams who have a home-and-home series coming up very soon. That is going to be a lot of fun. And both those teams will be in contention for that New Year's Six bowl spot, no doubt about it.
All right, I just have one thing to say, and it's about this terrible SEC team who thinks that they can compete with the big boys. I'm talking about the Vanderbilt Commodores. Should they think about going to a new conference?
No, they can't do that, Hunter, because the SEC needs them for academic purposes. The SEC needs them for their grade point averages and for their brains. And Vanderbilt brings lots to the table, too. They're excellent in baseball. They have a good year every now and then in basketball. They can't afford to, and they're one of the most expensive schools as well in the SEC. So from a money standpoint, from an academic standpoint, they've got to keep Vanderbilt. And they do bring some to the table in other areas outside of football. Clark Lee, though, defensive coordinator from Notre Dame, coming down there to take that head coaching job, I think he's going to do a pretty good job with them. Give him 2 years, and he's going to have Vanderbilt back in the bowl game. I wholeheartedly believe that.
All right, I just have a couple more questions to say.
Hey, Hunter, we'll take one more. We've got about 3 people on hold, so we'll take one more question, then we'll have to get to them.
Okay, I was just have a question about this bowl game. Tulane and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
What do you think about that brawl?
I'm glad you brought that up, Hunter. I'm glad you did. This goes for everybody, too. That was one of the most disgraceful and embarrassing moments in college football history, if you ask me. I mean, that was almost, if you're old enough to remember or you've watched it before, the Malice at the Palace, and I know that was, fans got involved in that, but what we saw at the end of that Armed Forces Bowl was just inexcusable, and there's no punishment to come out of that. Philip Montgomery and Mike Leach don't seem to have an issue with it. Granted, Mississippi State started it, and Mississippi State to go in the locker room afterwards and their players to watch on their phones what they did to their, it was cowardly to kick a player while they're down and then run. You're starting a fight and then running away. It just doesn't make any sense. And Mike Leach should kick him off the team. Every player that took part in that fight, there's something to be said for sticking up for your teammates. There's another thing to be said for the guys that started it. There's another thing to be said for the guy that beats someone when they're down and then runs away like a coward because he's too afraid to engage in a real fight, like a man. He should never start to begin with. Every player that celebrated in the locker room by what they did on their phone, looking on their phone, celebrating, calling the other players' names, and being excited because you pummeled someone on the ground, they need to be kicked off. They need to be kicked off the team, and they need to be severely punished. It's inexcusable, and there should be no tolerance for that. But what they'll end up doing, Hunter, is they'll give them a 1-game suspension. They'll berate them. They'll slap them on the wrist, but nothing bad's going to come of it. But someone needs to be made an example of because, again, that was one of the worst things I've ever seen, one of the most classless things I've ever seen, and both coaches have done nothing about it.
That does remind me of the Miami and FIU fight that happened in 2003.
Yes, right, yeah. So, I mean, there have been instances across the board. But that was one of the worst I've ever seen, and something needs to be done about it.
All right, well, I'm going to get off the phone line, give somebody else a chance to talk, but thank you for answering my questions, and I'll see you next Western.
Hey, you got it, Hunter. Thanks again for all the support, and have a great night, man.
You too. Bye.
All right, that's Hunter5657. You guys know all about him, too. Always got some great insight when he gives us a call. Great questions, too. This guy comes prepared, and I love it. So I'm going to put the number back in the chat. Georgia's...
Alabama has that slight defensive edge, in my opinion.
Sure.
Because I like Ohio State front defensive and like their defensive line, but I'm worried about that secondary, man.
For Alabama?
No, for Ohio State.
Well, I'm actually worried about both of them, if I'm being honest with you. I'm worried about both Alabama and Ohio State secondary. I'm more concerned for Ohio State secondary because this is going to be the best passing attack they faced. And if you look, everybody wants to praise Shaun Wade. They think he's the best second cornerback for Ohio State. Maybe so, but he got burned against Clemson. They beat Clemson by 21. They still allowed 400 passing yards to Trevor Lawrence. They got murdered and through the air by Indiana, almost allowed 500 passing yards to them. And now you're going up against Alabama with Mac Jones and Devontae Smith. I just don't see I don't know how Ohio State can stop them through the air when they haven't been able to stop them against their top two quarterbacks that they faced so far.
The only thing that Ohio State can do, in my opinion, they're not going to be able to stop Smith. But limit the explosive plays. Keep them within like those 6 to 7 yard completions. Make them eat up clock. Like they're going to score touchdowns. Like Alabama's going to score touchdowns. Make them spend time on those touchdowns.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. You have to limit the big plays. You have, in a game like this, and I saw a comic dude up here saying we got a natty shootout, a possible national championship shootout. That's what it could be. But Ohio State and Alabama both want to avoid that. You need to try to make, again, like you said, both teams need to try to methodically march the ball down the field. If you can limit those big plays, limit those teams from scoring in the span of a minute, 2 minutes, it's going to benefit. It's going to benefit your team as a whole. It's going to give your team a longer rest. It's going to be able to draw this game out a little bit more because again, if it becomes a dogfight, just score for score, possession for possession, I think that's actually going to hurt Ohio State more than it's going to hurt Alabama.
Another thing that worries me for Ohio State, which that they need to figure out how to do, is pressure the quarterback because Mac Jones does not have he's a good passer, but he does not have the best running ability in the world.
No, and that's going to be one of our keys to the game too. Is Justin Fields owns that mobility edge over Mac Jones. There's no doubt about that.
Well, hear me out. I would say maybe 2 weeks ago, but Justin Fields, I think he has a broken rib.
He is certainly injured. Yes, he is 100% injured.
So what I think Alabama's going to do is keep in the pocket and make them make those throws.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly what they have to do. That's exactly what they have to do. I mean, if you allow him to escape the pocket, not only can he extend the plays, but he can take off and run. Now, Ohio State doesn't want that. They don't want him taking hits. They're certainly going to stress the importance of sliding, getting down, and making sure that he doesn't take another hit to the ribs. But if they force him to stand in the pocket and make the throws, if he really is hurt, he's not going to be able to launch the deep ball as well as he did against Clemson. And I agree. That's something that Alabama's going to want to try to make them do because keeping him contained, you bottle up Trey Sermon, you keep Justin Fields in the pocket, it's going to make the day a lot easier for this Alabama defense. Not going to mean it's an instant success, but it's going to be better than making Ohio State's offense more, dynamic.
Here's what I think for Ohio State.
Do what?
Ohio State should not double. Teams have tried to double team Smith. It just doesn't work. I would play in a soft zone. Everything and just limit those explosive 20-yard plus plays. You have a shot at winning the game because Ohio State can score. Yes,
and that's the thing. Alabama, both these teams have the players and the personnel to take very quick drives, take a 1 yard, 2 yard gain, and turn it into a 20, 30-yard gain. But if I am Ohio State, I am more concerned about that than I am for Alabama. Alabama's wide receiver core, the ability and the athleticism of Najee Harris concerns me more than that of Ohio State's wide receiver core and the athleticism of Trey Sermon. Alabama, to me, while both offenses are great, Alabama owns the entire offensive edge from top to bottom. And again, if you're Ohio State, you have to make sure that you prevent those big plays, prevent the big gains. And Alabama, on the other hand, they've got to make sure they get off the field. Clemson could not get off the field to save their life on 3rd and longs. If Alabama can't do that, then Ohio State's got a very good chance of winning this game.
But the one thing I noticed is Alabama, they don't struggle on 3rd downs, but they don't have that high of a 3rd down completion percentage. I just saw that the other day.
No, they don't. And that's the thing. Ohio State's completing 50% of their 3rd downs. They're converting on 50% of their 3rd downs. Alabama, I don't know their percentage off the top of my head, but it hasn't been as impressive.
But it's not great.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And that's going to be a key in this one. You've got it with a game that has two great offenses and two great quarterbacks. Your defense has to find a way to get off the field, whether it's forcing some turnovers, getting off the field on 3rd down. Again, something Clemson couldn't do. Creating pressure and forcing the other team into those 2nd and 3rd and longs. That's what these teams have to do here because, again, both these teams can score in an instant and have the ability to pick up chunk yardage on every single play. That's how freakishly good these teams are and what we've seen from both these teams' last games against Clemson and Notre Dame.
One more thing I want to talk about. Do you think Texas A&M should have been in the playoffs over Notre Dame?
No. I did for hindsight, looking at it now, no, I don't. And at the time I contemplated it, I still didn't think they should have been left out because, again, they were the number 2 team in the country, were undefeated. But you look at how both teams played, again, maybe Steve Sarkisian could have run up the score on Notre Dame. I know Mitch and I were talking about that earlier. Maybe he could have done that and it could have been worse. But Notre Dame held Alabama to their lowest point total this season, held them to 31 points. They dropped 14 on them. Texas A&M faced a very short-handed North Carolina team, missing their top 2 rushers.
Yeah, and how about both their running backs, right?
Both their running backs, their leading wide receiver, and their leading tackler, and UNC still almost won that game. And A&M's defense looked horrible.
It was like 27-27 in like the first quarter, right?
Yes, and A&M ended up getting a ridiculous long touchdown run, broken tackles. It was poor fundamentals on UNC's part. UNC couldn't pick up a first down, couldn't pick up a yard to extend the drive. A&M got a late score to get up by 14. But Sam Howell was dominating with that deep ball. A&M could not stop the deep ball. And I just kept thinking, what would have happened had they faced Mac Jones and Devontae Smith? How bad that would have been for them. So looking at it, no, A&M should not have been in the playoff as that 4 seed.
And that's why we need an 18 playoff, in my opinion, 8 or 10, something like that.
Oh, yes, we do. We need playoff expansion. There's no doubt about that.
But I'll take this. I wouldn't even say that. Honestly, I get Oklahoma at 2 losses. In my opinion, right now, they're the 4th team best in the country. I just feel like Oklahoma could have given Alabama a fight.
Look, Oklahoma would have played well. Oklahoma still would have lost. I'm convinced that anybody that had gotten into as that 4 seed, I'm convinced that whoever played Alabama was going to get murdered. Even if it was a hot team like Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Georgia, I don't care who it was. I think they would have gotten killed. It would have been closer because Oklahoma's defense has taken major strides forward under Alex Grinch. But
the difference between this year's Oklahoma and the past year's Oklahoma is they actually have a decent defense.
Well, that's what we're saying. Yeah, their defense has gotten a lot better under Alex Grinch. So, I think maybe next year could be the year where they get into the playoff. And if Oklahoma can be good enough next year to avoid being the 4 seed and avoid maybe ultimately playing Alabama, they get in as a 2, get in as a 3, you could see Oklahoma in the national championship. Because if this team plays the way they played over the final stretch of this season, there's no doubt in my mind they could run the table. They could go undefeated. They could win the Big 12. And if you have an undefeated or even a 1-loss Oklahoma team that's a Big 12 champion, I think they're good enough to be above the 4, at least a 3 or a 2. Hopefully avoid Alabama for them and get to the national championship because this team is legit. For the first few years, it was offense only, no defense whatsoever. But Grinch has slowly but surely built up this Oklahoma defense to the point where maybe they are getting to the point where they can contend against Bama, Clemson, Ohio State.
But I would say also their offense isn't as good as it has been years past either.
It's not as good as it's been, but it's going to get there. That's the thing. They're turning that corner, and they've turned that corner now. Spencer Rattler in year 2 is going to play a lot better than he did in year 1, and he didn't even play bad in year 1. That's the scary thing.
What I didn't understand, everyone was like dissing him like the first 3 games of the season. When he was doing okay, I'm like, he's a freshman. Like you can't expect him to go out there and go 29 or 33 with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. That's not how it works.
Right. He's a freshman. Oklahoma was so used to dealing with the transfer quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, and you threw in a true freshman. You threw in a true freshman, and they expect him to put the same numbers and play the same way, and that's just not how it works. But he got better as the year went on, as we expected, and I think a whole other offseason under his belt to build chemistry, to learn the system. Year 2 could be a very special year for him. He's starting to live up to his hype, no doubt about it.
Because if you think about it, Oklahoma hasn't had to really develop a quarterback in over 10 years.
Yes, in a way, yes, you're right.
Yeah, like from high school.
The last one I can think of, honestly, was Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford was a dang good quarterback.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the next few months, how this offseason plays out for Oklahoma, and next year they are legitimately back in the playoff conversation, no doubt about it. I would be shocked honestly, right now, after what I've seen, I'd be shocked if they missed out on the playoff. And I know it's early indications, but this is going to be a good team to watch out for next year.
Another team that really surprised me that I did not expect to play that well against Georgia, Cincinnati.
Yes, and Grayson, we're getting another call. I'm going to touch on Cincinnati here in a second.
Yeah.
We're going to pick this one up here in 1 second, but no, we're going to talk more about Cincinnati a little bit. I've got that list as one of our bowl games, and yeah, that was a fun one. We'll talk more on that in a second. But Grayson, hey, thanks for calling in, man.
Yep, of course.
All right, that was Grayson. Grayson talking everything, mostly Oklahoma football here, but we're talking some great. All right, who do we have on the line with us?
Nicholas Thompson.
Hey, what's up, Nick? I appreciate you being patient, man. I'm sorry we couldn't get to you earlier.
That's fine, bro.
How you doing? How you been?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Hey, getting by, man. New year, ready to get rolling. Excited to see what all has in store for us.
Yeah, me too, bro.
What you got going on? What are we talking about? We talking Hogs or we talking something different?
We're talking about Bulldogs, man. How you think about what you think about Georgia, man?
Well, it's good. I'm that up. Then we can talk about Grayson and Cincinnati too. Look, Georgia. Nick, I'm not a Georgia fan. I'm not. I don't hate Georgia, but I've never been a Georgia fan. I was appalled, honestly, by how poorly they played against Cincinnati. I think they were very lucky to escape with that victory over the Bearcats. And I know they were down a lot of starters, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But it was shocking to see it be as close as it was. I thought eventually Georgia was going to pull away, win this game by at least 10 points. I genuinely thought that. I did not expect them to have to kick a 50-plus yard field goal to escape Cincinnati. We knew Cincinnati was a good team. Dang good team. Very motivated for this one. But I didn't think it was going to be as close as it was. Now, having said that, this has been a different team, and you know this firsthand, very different team with JT Daniels under center. The way they finished the last four.
Absolutely, man.
I mean, the last 4 games, the way they finished with him under center, he's finally, I don't know why, I know he was injured early on, but the fact that Kirby Smart didn't start him until that final 3-game stretch when they were playing weaker opponents blows my mind. With him under center.
Oh, it did too. It did to me too. Like, I was like, dude, he's way better than Stetson Bennett, and you're still putting Stetson Bennett in, and you know he's struggling.
Exactly. You put in Stetson Bennett when he's struggling. Dwan Mathis was never going to be your answer. And we knew that after week 1 against Arkansas that he was not going to be the future of Georgia football. So give JT time to heal, but JT was fine for that Florida game. And I'm not saying they would have beat Florida with JT under center, but it would have been closer. It absolutely would have been closer. And
it would have, man.
And but what I'll say for this is, hindsight's 20/20. It sucks to look at. You finish the year off with a big New Year's Six bowl win against a good Cincinnati team. That's another thing that's unfortunate with being an SEC power like Georgia is they go into a game like that, they're expected to win. So if you beat them, they're like, congrats, you beat an American athletic team. You beat a group of 5 team, you did your job. They lose, you get criticized. How do you lose to a group of 5 team? That's so embarrassing. You can't win in this scenario.
Yeah. It'll be like how Auburn lost to UCF.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
We didn't stop hearing from TS fans for like a whole freaking year.
Exactly. That's the biggest moment for a lot of these group of 5 schools. The ultimate goal is to get to that New Year's Six bowl game, to play an SEC caliber team and beat them. I mean, if you get to do that, that's impressive because usually there is a talent gap there and certainly a recruiting gap there. But I will tell you this, with your Bulldogs, I do believe they are a college football playoff and national championship favorite going into 2021. I really genuinely believe that. I know they're losing a lot.
I'm just hoping, man, that JT Daniels comes back. I know everybody, a lot of great pieces on that offense. Daniel Washington, Darian Smith, Trey Burton. I know a lot of my Bulldog fans are freaking getting hyped up over Brock Vanderbilt. That's great. Brock is a great player. He's going to be a great player, but he's still going to be a true freshman.
Yeah, the future is going to be bright with him, but he's not going to be your guy this upcoming year. But yes, there's the hype around him is legit, and I think he's going to be pretty dang good. That's the beauty of this. That's why the future is so exciting, I think, for Georgia, because you're going to be good next year when Daniels is gone and when you have to quote unquote rebuild. You got Vanderbilt waiting in the wings, and you're going to pick up right where you left off. You're not going to dip. I think in the SEC standings, at least not that far. You're still going to be contending for titles. You're still going to be contending for potential playoff spots and certainly New Year's Six bowl games. But I think next year, I really do. We talked with Hunter earlier. That game against Clemson is going to be the telling point where this team can be. You beat them, sky's the limit. Even if you lose in a close game, sky's the limit. But if you struggle,
that's gonna be a really good game. I can't wait.
I'm praying that we actually get to see it be played. I'm praying that it actually gets to happen. I think it will. But that's going to be a very good test for both Clemson and Georgia, two teams that are going to be playoff favorites next year. And
you think JT will come back this year, man, or are you gonna declare?
No, he would be an idiot to declare. He hasn't done anything. He's played 4 games. I mean, his career at USC was cut short. He transferred to Athens, didn't play to the final 4 games, and he played against weaker opponents outside of Cincinnati. He's got the starting job now. I think and my guy Sam basically confirming that he's coming back on Instagram. So apparently JT is more than likely has confirmed he's going to come back, and that was to be expected. He would not have gotten drafted in a good spot had he declared. So with him under center, man, I still think the sky's the limit. I still think that Georgia's the East favorite next year. Florida will challenge them. Missouri will challenge them.
I cannot wait to destroy Florida.
But yeah, I know you can't. Yeah, I know you're going to be anxious to get your revenge.
I cannot stand that one crybaby Dan Mullen after what he did to, after what he said to Oklahoma. Like, dude, you got beat 55-20. Take your ass whooping like a man and own up to it. Don't cry. Oh, we only all that game was 11 days ago. What kind of coach or program does that?
That is what I've talked with a lot of people in the chat about. I don't know what kind of coach. I don't know what kind of coach throws his players that he recruited, that he chose to come to Florida. I mean, they ultimately chose, but he wanted them. What kind of coach says that to them and throws them under the bus like that? You know, you might think some things. You might think we aren't motivated. You might think, God, we're going to lose, but you don't say that out loud. There are some things you can think to yourself and not say. And Mullen made a very bad mistake in throwing his players under the bus like that. And again, I think that's going to hurt recruiting. I think that's going to hurt recruiting drastically. Who would want to go play for a man that doesn't support you and go play for a coach that's going to say, hey, you're my practice squad player. That's all you are. That's all you'll ever be. And you're going to be part of the reason we get blown out.
From Florida fans that they even want Todd Grantham gone.
Yeah, right. They need to get Todd Grantham gone. They got to get him gone. If Florida ever wants to get over the hump, you got to get rid of a guy who just basically his whole defensive scheme is blitz. It's got to change.
Yeah, it does, man. And one more question, bro. What do you think about?
Hey, Nick, you went out on us. What were you saying?
What do you think about Jim Harbaugh and his new quarterback, Digit?
I don't know why Jim Harbaugh's still at Michigan. I don't even know why. I heard they signed him to an extension to 2026, and I think that's ridiculous. I think that's
stupid.
I think how can you look? Some coaches deserve to break this year with COVID. With the Big Ten starting late and with players opting out and players getting sick, there were a handful of programs and coaches that deserved that break and didn't deserve this year to really count for them. Michigan was not one of them. Harbaugh's been there long enough. He's had his opportunities long enough. I don't know how you can beat Minnesota as bad as they did. Minnesota was nothing to brag about this year either. But beat Minnesota as bad as you did in your opener, and then come back and play like that, and play like you did the rest of the year. I also think if Ohio State had played Michigan and Ohio State had destroyed Michigan like they would have, I think Harbaugh would be gone. So I think Clemson canceling. I think getting out of that game against Ohio State, because they didn't cancel, they just chose to do it on purpose. I don't believe they had COVID issues. That saved Harbaugh's job for at least one more year. Now, I wouldn't have signed him for 6 more years. I think that's stupid. 5 more years, that's ridiculous. But maybe they know something that we don't.
Yeah, maybe so.
Well, Nick, man, hey, I appreciate you calling in. We're getting some call from, I think, Oskaloosa, Iowa, so he keeps calling in. I'll make sure we get to him. But, hey, thanks so much for calling in. It was good talking to you. And, hey, good luck to your dogs, man. We'll talk about them soon for sure.
All right, bro. Thanks.
You got it. All right, that was our guy, Nick. I think I know who this is if I can get it on the line. Here we go. We've got the call from Iowa. Who is with us right now? Who we got? Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Hey, we're having trouble hearing you. We're having trouble. Can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, can you hear me a little clearer now?
Yeah, we got you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to call and speak up about the New Year's Six and other bowl games, and then also the national championship game. I guess I'll start in the national championship game. The question I ask myself is, do I think Alabama will blow out Ohio State? And the answer I get each time is no. And because I don't think Alabama will blow out Ohio State, I then ask myself, well, who do I think has been more battle-tested and have to actually come back in the second half and close out gritty, close games? I mean, people are going to cite that SEC championship game. Well, Alabama was up 2 touchdowns pretty much the entirety of the second half. They scored that touchdown and that 2-point conversion to make it 52-46. But I mean, Alabama, they had to recover an offside against them. You know, so Alabama wasn't really, you know, really kind of pulled that like the game and thought, I don't make the play here and make the play there. I think it's going to come to a point where Ohio State is going to have a rebound. And I don't, Alabama has to really do that.
Hey, we're losing you a little bit. You're fading out on us.
Oh, I'm just saying, Alabama hasn't been through that meat grinder of a test where in deep into the fourth quarter, they're tied or they're behind, and they have to make a play to win the game. In Ohio State, you know, the Indiana game they had to close out. The Northwestern game they had to close out. And look, you know, I'm a Cyclone fan. I would love to see the Big Ten crash and burn, but I'm trying to be objective here. And objectively, I think Ohio State is more battle tested for a close game, and I like Buckeyes to beat the Crimson Tide.
Wow, that's a pretty bold prediction. I'm not gonna lie.
But you know what they say? God made the countryside, God made the lakes. God made the Crimson Tide, but we all make mistakes.
Oh, there we go. Nice. I like that. Well, we got the bold prediction. You know, look, I know a lot of people are very torn on who to pick between Ohio State and Alabama. I myself was torn after watching how great Ohio State played against Clemson. I mean, that was just a gritty performance. I mean, to beat that Clemson team by 21 points, I mean, I don't even know if Alabama could have done that, if I'm being quite honest with you. I don't know if they could have. So, yeah, this is not one of those games where you're walking in and you're like, there's no doubt Alabama wins. I mean, we've been able to do that in the past for some, but doesn't feel like one of them. Having said that, you're right. I like the point about Ohio State being a team that's been somewhat battle-tested. They had to close against Indiana. Certainly had to come back from behind against Northwestern and close. They came back from behind slightly against Clemson and then dominated from about the second quarter on. The thing is, Alabama, I don't know if anybody can stop their offense. And I know Clemson, or Ohio State did a pretty good job of stopping Clemson's offense, but they're not Alabama. And you look at Alabama and how well they've played from top to bottom. Lowest point total was 31. They certainly could have hung more on Notre Dame. Besides that, it was 38 was their lowest point total. And they scored at least 38 in every single game. And Ohio State's secondary is what scares me the most. I mean, like we were talking earlier with another caller, you know, they allowed 400 yards to Trevor Lawrence. I know they lost, but 400 yards to Trevor Lawrence. They allowed 491 to Michael Penix. And that Indiana wide receiver core is good, but they're not Alabama good. So the numbers have been skewed because the other Big Ten quarterbacks they played have been nobody. I mean, you shouldn't get praise for beating Adrian Martinez and Rocky Lombardi. But when you're allowing that many yards to Penix and Lawrence, who neither, I think, have the weapons or maybe as the talent right now as Mac Jones, that concerns me a little bit in this national championship.
Well, I'll say this. I think the Trevor Lawrence stat is a little misleading, and the reason why is because Ohio State jumped out to a huge lead early on, and normally when you have a huge lead and you got to, fight and claw to come back in short periods of time, guess what? You're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and that's how you get inflated passing yards. So I'm not so concerned about the Trevor Lawrence 400-yard passing factor just because of what was involved in the situation in that game. Now, Indiana, you're right, but even in that game, Ohio State did have a pick six in that game and made a very game-changing play in that game. But, I just have never seen a team, at least in recent memory, go through an entire season and not have one game where deep into the fourth quarter they have to make a play and be battle-tested. And those teams where that first game they have to try to make a response is deep in the fourth quarter and do that, I just don't, it just doesn't happen normally. The last team I can think of that really, was never battle-tested until the national championship game, they were tested in the national championship game, and they lost. It was Oregon in 2014, season, I guess it was the 2015 national championship game, and they lost to Ohio State. And I just don't see it, a team, at least in my recent memory, I haven't noticed one team just steamroll everybody in the competition. I mean, some will say LSU last year, but even LSU had games in the regular season, like against Alabama, against Auburn, where they were tested deep into the fourth quarter, and Joe Burrow or somebody on LSU's defense had to make a play. So if some say LSU from last year, I think that's an apples to oranges comparison because, Alabama thoroughly dominated everybody on their schedule this year, but, LSU had a little wrinkle of having those two games where they were battle tested. So that's my concern with Alabama.
Yeah, and that's a legitimate concern. I'm not going to argue with you on that. It's a legitimate concern, and you're right. There is something to be said for that. You put Alabama in a position that they very well could be in this championship, late third, early fourth, even in a position where they're down early. If they trail 7-0 or 10-0, whatever it could be, how does that team respond? Because you're right, they haven't faced that type of adversity this season. I don't know, honestly, if they've even trailed at all this season. And if it has, it's been a slim margin, 3-0, 7-0, nothing too much. So you're right. How does a team like that respond in crunch time, where at a point where Mac Jones hasn't had to lead a game-winning drive this season? He hasn't had to help get his team in field goal position to try and win a game. We all know that if this game comes down to a field goal, Alabama probably will not win with their kicking woes. So, it's an excellent point. It's an excellent point, one that should be strongly considered. But I continue to look at the entire body of work from both teams and the entire personnel, and just again wonder, Alabama's defense has struggled a little bit against the pass. Their last performance against a team of Ohio State's caliber was Florida. Struggled a little bit through the air there. But even in that game, they had 2 interceptions. I think that's going to be a key in this one. 2 teams that are going to air it out. And I was talking with somebody earlier, I think Ohio State, they've been dominating the ground game so much this year, and so much these last 2 games, they've been dominating on the ground, that if they can rush for about 175 yards, around that, I think they're going to win this game. If they can find that type of balance that they've had most of the year, they can win that game. Because Alabama hasn't seen a team like that. If Alabama's defense bucks up and they hold them to 150, 125, somewhere around that, well below their average, and bottle up Trey Sermon, I think they're going to win this game. So the ground game is going to be vital for both teams here, and I'm not really sure if Ohio State's going to have enough to continue the success they've had.
Well, and then the final topic I want to talk about, I think it's probably a predictable one for you to guess here, but my father's first cousin is an Oregon football mega donor, and so it was absolutely wonderful to see the Cyclones put a beat down on the Black Attack.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can imagine. It was a sight to see. I'm not even going to argue with that. It was unbelievable.
Apparently, the cousin is going to be recommending that Cristobal fire the offensive line and defensive line coach because, quote, we're going nowhere if we are going to be mauled by a bunch of farm boys from Iowa.
And I would say they were. I would say it's exactly what happened.
Well, and I guess I'll ask you that. I think it's possible 3 teams in the preseason AP poll that comes out, before week 1. I think it's possible the Big 12 fields 3 teams nationally ranked in the top 10.
I assume it would be what? Oklahoma, Iowa State, and Texas?
Well, I mean, the money at Texas always gets you a few extra points in the polls, right?
Of course. Name recognition
Oklahoma,
for sure.
I would rank Oklahoma preseason number 2 in the country next year.
They're absolutely a top 3 team in my eyes right now, 100%.
I would rank Iowa State 7 or 8, and I would rank Texas, probably 9, maybe 10. But I mean, the Big 12, they're going to be a very solid conference in the 2021 college football season, and and I'll try to get to the Florida thing, and you probably got another college segment. If that's how good Dan Mullen's backups are, I will declare right now that the Georgia Bulldogs will win the SEC East in 2021 because that Florida team they fielded was a pile of dog crap.
Yeah, they are. It was horrible. And I'll make this our last point because we're getting a call from Rhode Island here. We're going to take the call from Rhode Island, then we're going to take the call from Sam after that. But as with Florida, I do agree. If that's what the backups were looking like, and say what you want, they weren't motivated or they weren't. I don't even care what the excuses are. It was pitiful. And right now, Georgia is my favorite to win the SEC East next year. No doubt in my mind about it. Florida loses way too much. Georgia brings back way too much. I almost feel like it's a shoe-in.
Right. No offense ever excused allowing 430 yards rushing.
Yes, exactly. I don't care who wasn't playing. I don't care what the circumstances were. They didn't show up. They didn't play, and it's a problem. So, hey, we're getting that call from Rhode Island right now, but thanks so much for calling in, and we'll definitely talk soon.
Yep, thank you.
You got it. All right, let's get this guy on the line. I know who this is. Hey, Hunter, I apologize for taking so long. How are you doing?
Yeah, no problem. I'm doing well, man. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, Hunter. Right back at you, and hope it's been a solid start for you.
Yeah, a lot better than 2020.
You're right, yes, and we need to keep it in hindsight, 100%.
Exactly. So I know this is a football chat, but I do have to ask you, you were wearing a Team USA soccer jersey in the past, right?
I was. It was a sweatshirt, but yes, I had some Team USA gear.
Gotcha. Because I'm watching the World Junior Championships right now for ice hockey. Ice hockey big up here in Rhode Island, and the U.S. is on against Finland in the final. We're up 3-2 in the third period, so just to let you know.
Hey, there we go. I like to see that. Look,
Yeah.
I'm slowly but surely actually getting into hockey. I've been diving into it a little bit more. I'm a big soccer guy, believe it or not, and that's what that sweatshirt was for. But I started to keep track of our youth hockey teams, and I've started to kind of dabble with the NHL, and I've always wanted to go to a hockey game. But I'm glad to hear that we're actually doing well for once. I know we're usually the underdogs when it comes to national hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. They play Canada tomorrow if they hold on here, but yeah, that won't be easy. So it's kind of weird watching it without the fans, just like every other sport. It's just behind closed doors and no spectators. So it's kind of weird, just the whole no spectators thing.
It's bizarre to me, and it feels weird now. I get onto YouTube or I go through TV and I find a rerun of some old game, regardless of the sport, and it just doesn't feel normal. You look at all these people packed into these stadiums, and you're like, this is dangerous. Why are they doing that? It almost, it's hard to believe that that's how things used to be, and it's only been about a year since we used to see it.
Exactly. Yeah, so I do want to touch on Ohio State because I have been very critical this year about how they were allowed access to the playoff despite only playing 5 games. The Big Ten bent the rules for them to be in the playoff, and I still have a problem with it, but I do want to give Justin Fields his props, just the toughness he showed, and he played the best game of his life, the best game of his career, in my opinion. Some of the throws he made were just fantastic, and I'm really happy for him. And I just hope the next championship he can play up to his potential, hopefully.
No, I'm with you 100%. That was I don't know many quarterbacks that could take a hit like they did, even though I think it was a horrible call for targeting. I strongly disagree with that call, but that's besides the point. But to take a hit like that, and then to, first off, stay in the game, and not just stay in the game, but you're taking deep shots. I mean, he was chunking it 40, 50 yards down the field on the money. One of the best throws that any quarterback in the country could have made. So, there's 100% he's got some cracked ribs. He's got something wrong with him. There's no way he escaped that with just, getting the wind knocked out of him. Something's wrong. But he's expected to play in the national championship, and for his sake, for his draft stock, and for everything he's done for Ohio State the last 2 years, especially how last year ended, I hope that he has a good game. I genuinely do. And as for your comment about, Ohio State kind of getting put in despite only playing 6 games, I was with you. I was very against that. I know a lot of coaches in the country were against that. I think they justified getting in a little bit with their beat down over Clemson. I think that kind of proved to everybody, we may have only played 6 games, but we probably were going to run the table in the Big Ten anyway, so this just showed we were worthy of it. Still disagree with it, but at least it didn't get blown out. The hatred and the controversy would have been a lot greater had Ohio State gotten murdered against Clemson, but the fact that they murdered Clemson themselves, I think, proved a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I do want to talk about the college football playoff committee because I've been livid this whole year at the bias the committee has shown to certain teams, namely Florida, not dropping them more than 1 spot after losing at home to LSU, favored by 23 with a Heisman Trophy finalist in Kyle Trask. And for them to only drop 1 spot was beyond me. I just can't stand that we have people who honestly don't even belong sitting in a room deciding who the best 4 teams are. And we've mentioned it many times. You and I have discussed it in the comments that something needs to change and soon, or else the authenticity of college football is going to be gone.
Yeah, I'll go out and say now, I think the integrity of the game is gone. I think it's been ruined by this idea of a playoff committee. Because at the end of the day, it's not hard. And I think that's what frustrates me the most. I know you have to have people voting. If you're going to have a playoff committee, you have to have people in there making these decisions about who makes the Final 4. I hope we expand someday and maybe who makes the Final 8. But you can't tell me there's no bias going on inside that room. They'll never admit to that, but there is. And that was evident this year. It's been evident to me for a while. I have hated the playoff committee since its inception back in 2014. I think we've seen so many horrible decisions, so many horrible rankings that I've questioned what really goes on behind those doors. And you can't tell me that money and name recognition doesn't play a role in there. And I think that starts with Florida. I think that starts with some bigger name teams getting preference over a group of 5 teams, or just, you put a 2-loss team over a 1-loss team, or their criteria sounds great when you talk about it, but when they don't implement it, it makes no sense. Why have rules and why have guidelines if you're not going to follow them and put them in place? And the committee doesn't do that. And I agree. I think it's gone. I think the integrity of the game is gone, and it can't be fixed until we expand and until we get a real committee in there. They thought it was a good idea to with their committees bring in people with all these different backgrounds, with all these different experiences. We'll bring in athletic directors, we'll bring in former players, we'll bring in former Army generals, we'll bring in Condoleezza Rice, who was working under the Bush administration. We'll bring in all these different people that are football fans and have some sort of tie to football, and let them decide the fate of college football. Let them decide the fate of these teams. That's not how it should be. I would much rather have the group of analysts that we watch every week, right? Reese Davis and Kirk Herbstreit, David Pollack. I'd rather have those guys in that room making those decisions because I think they would be more fair. I genuinely do. Than the guys we have in there that, as you mentioned, don't know football. And I think that's my biggest issue is we're dealing with guys here, and I know I'm ranting, I'll wrap it up, but we're dealing with guys here that, once said, I didn't vote for Christian McCaffrey in the Heisman voting because I don't stay up late enough to watch Pac-12 football. We're dealing with guys here that do have bias, whether they say it or not, have bias against certain players, against certain schools. They might not admit to it, but they do. And that's an issue. That's a major issue. We need guys in there that watch football for a living, guys that study it the way that and that actually care about the integrity of the game and want to put in those best four teams and rank the rest of the teams. Again, top four is what the playoffs there's for. 5 through 25 matter too. They matter in a big way. And we need guys in there that are going to actually watch every game, watch them from a analytical standpoint, not a bias and a fan's point of view, and rank them accordingly. And again, I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, spot on. And just last point I want to touch on real quick, being the host guard that I am. I was really surprised and quite frankly disappointed that Justin Fuente is coming back. Listen, I respect him as a coach, but I just don't think he lived up to the standards that Virginia Tech holds Virginia Tech football to, and I don't really understand the move by Babcock to have him say literally no changes have been made to the coaching staff. Recruiting is down, and I'm concerned moving forward the direction of this football program. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Your concerns are legitimate, Hunter. They really are. Virginia Tech, and you know it firsthand, they're a rich program. They're rich in tradition and are used to success. And in a conference like the ACC that right now really isn't all that competitive, with the talent certainly the talent that they had this year, but the talent that they have had in the past under Fuente, there's no reason they shouldn't be in the ACC title almost every year. And I know, again, teams like Miami and North Carolina, Virginia has gotten better. I know they're up and comers and they're getting better and they're threats. But Virginia Tech should have been doing a lot better than they have been. I was surprised they kept him too, but like we were talking earlier in the show, you can't help but wonder. Virginia Tech had to have had somebody in mind. You shouldn't fire a coach without having your guy set in place. And I don't know if Virginia Tech knew they were going to be able to get anybody good enough to come in and replace Fuente, good enough to immediately succeed, because they're not looking to rebuild. They're looking to get someone in and succeed immediately, right off the bat, win 8 or 9 games, and be contending for that Coastal Crown. And, I think right now they believe Fuente's the only guy that can do that, at least for this upcoming year. And I think I think we can agree here, if they lose or if they fail to win, I'd say 8 games. I know even for many that's a disappointing year. Fail to win 8 games in 2021, I think he's got to be out, because mediocrity is just not going to be accepted out in Blacksburg. And I think that's what they are right now. Virginia Tech's just a mediocre program and has been under Justin Fuente. And I would be concerned with the direction of the program. Unless he works a miracle in 2021, anything less than 8 wins or even right at it, I think he's got to be gone.
Yeah, here. So, all right, well, I'll let you go. All the best to you in 2021, TE. Great talking with you as always, and take care. Have a good one.
Hey, I appreciate it, Hunter. Take care. We'll definitely talk to you soon.
Sounds good. All right, man. Have a good one.
You too. That was Hunter Shin, of course, all the way up from Rhode Island. Diehard Virginia Tech fan, though. And love talking to him down in the comments. Love talking to him. Obviously on the live streams can get a little more in detail. Brought up some great points, guys. Not just about Virginia Tech football, but about the playoff committee. It's a problem. It's concerning. College football is it's going downhill fast. And someone's got to put a stop to it, because the way the playoff is structured now, the way the selection process is structured now, we all want to see it. We all want to see a group of 5 teams get their shot. We all want to see teams be ranked fairly. Pull them up here. What's going on, Sam? How you doing?
What's up, man?
Not much at all. I'm sorry it took us so long to get to you, but I'm glad we did. I'm glad we were able to get to you tonight.
Yeah, for sure, man. That would come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll talk a little while. We got about 10 minutes or so to sit down and talk whatever we want to talk about. Then I'm going to wrap up the chat and knock out this thing. But what's been going on?
Not much. That was a hell of a peach bowl. I'll tell you. I know you already touched on that game, but wow, I was surprised Susan took a game-winning field goal to win that game. But hey, at least we won, and we don't have to deal with that off-season of hell like when we lost that Sugar Bowl a couple of years back.
Yeah. I was gonna say. Well, let's keep in mind, you lost that Sugar Bowl to Texas. You lost that to a Power 5 program. You lose this to a Group of 5 program. Could have been a little bit worse.
It would have been even worse this year.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, I think Cincinnati fans are a little more tame than the UCF fans, but it still would have been pretty rough. But no, it was. It was, for your words, a hell of a Peach Bowl. I think from an unbiased fan's perspective, like I was just watching it for the heck of it, it was a great game. It was one of the best games of this entire postseason. And I think it was surprising. I mean, Sam, you're a Georgia fan. You're a student there. And guys, if you don't know already, Sam also runs one of the best, probably the best football Instagram page out there at AllCFB. It's in our description, but go check him out on Twitter and Instagram at AllCFB. Go give him a look. But Sam, you're a student there at Georgia. What's your takeaway? What's your biggest concern from that Peach Bowl, and what needs to be going forward in 21?
Usually it was the offensive line. I mean, we're clearly losing a few guys. Trey Hill is declared, but he didn't play in that game. But I mean, even with the revamped offensive line, that was really disappointing. I mean, JT Daniels was running for his life most of the day. We really had no run game. He had like one rushing touchdown, but overall, I don't know what the rushing total was, but it was kind of reminiscent of that Mississippi State game where we just did not have a run game. Luckily, JT was able to pick up the slack, but.
Well, yeah, that's the crazy thing about it too, because you were rushing for over 200, sometimes 300 yards as a team in the last few games against
It's bizarre. Like some games we have no run games at all, and the next Missouri and South Carolina running all over them. It's weird, very inconsistent.
And that, yeah, for lack of better words, for sure, inconsistent. And I think that's something that's got to be worked out going into 21. You've got JT Daniels.
I mean, just given the time to gel and stuff. I mean, we'll have some really, some big-time recruits that will probably be starting on that line next year. Hopefully, they'll be able to gel during the offseason a little more. Given time, I do think it'll be a lot better than what we saw in the Peach Bowl, but you never know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. You never know. But, I think the one thing that Georgia – look, Kirby's going to flip it around. Kirby's going to turn it around in terms of your inconsistency, I think. And keep in mind, you're dealing – and you know this. I mean, you're dealing with a new offensive coordinator. Tom Monken comes in year one. There were expected to be some growing pains. But you're going to return –
Good to have some continuity there with the OC and everything. Not Luke coming back, the offensive line coach. I think that'll benefit this offense. It could make it one of the better offenses next year, hopefully.
No, I agree. Look, and it's all because of JT. Georgia under Kirby Smart has not had a quarterback like this. I mean, you had Eason briefly. He goes down. You got to throw in Fromm. If you had Justin Fields, if he had stuck around and actually used him, you'd be set. But Fromm was good enough. He was consistent. He just wasn't electric. And then this year has been just a quarterback carousel. But they finally landed on the right guy, and he's going to be the guy that I think can finally get you that national title. Say it again.
He will be back next year, which is great. So we'll have continuity there. Obviously, Vanderbilt coming in. He'll have a year to prepare behind him, and then he'll be able to take over in 2022. So I think we're in a really good spot with the quarterbacks.
Oh, you're set. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. You're absolutely set. Once you got Daniels' upcoming year, once he's gone, you're going to be set after that. I don't think the offense, which has kind of been an issue over the recent years, I don't think that's going to be an issue going forward. And if Kirby continues to build his defense, the way he has over the last few years, you're finally, to me, getting those pieces together where you can where you can finally win a national title, first one since 1980.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed.
The thing with Georgia is it just all needs to come together. Like in 2018, we had the offense, but our defense took a big step back, and then obviously 19, we had the best defense in the country. Offense took a major step back, and then this year was just a whole mess with the quarterbacks. If we could just have it all come together for 1 year, I mean, yeah, we could totally win it.
Yeah, and it's always something. You know, I think your best team was back in, what was that, 17, the year you actually made the title.
Yeah, 17.
Yeah, that was the year to do it.
That year, it's just we fell short.
Yeah, but no, I'm genuinely looking forward to it. I really think, looking at the state of the SEC right now, especially the East, nothing's ever a lock, but Georgia's the heavy favorite to bounce back and win the East. Florida's going to take a step back. Missouri's just not there yet.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on Florida too. I definitely expect them to take a major step back, especially with that offense. I mean, I feel like they're losing everything. Dan Mullen's idiotic comments. I mean, as you said, who would want to play for a guy like that? I mean, he's just like a clown.
Well, yeah, I mean, and a lot of people think that and say that. Again, it blows my mind, the comments said by a coach like that. You know, we got coaches here that are supposed to stick up for their players, and are supposed to, as the leader of a team, you know, you have to face that adversity head on and embrace it and say, all right, this is what we're going to do. Mullen knew that when they lost the SEC title, obviously playoff hopes were done when they lost to LSU. Even if they beat Alabama, they weren't getting in. But you know, they knew after that Trask was probably going to play, but Pitts was done, and Tony was done, and Grimes was done, and a handful of defensive starters were done. Then you had COVID on top of that. But look, as a coach, you just accept that. You deal with that, and you prepare. It's that next man up mentality. And Mullen seems to not even believe in that next man up mentality. It's as soon as the slightest bit of adversity hits you, we're done, we give up, forget it. And I'll throw all my players under the bus. It blows my mind.
And like practice squad players, like who does that? Like Kirby Smart, for example, I know in Georgia, like he would never say something like that. Like that just it blows my mind to his post game remarks.
Most coaches would.
I've been hearing that he's. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, most coaches wouldn't do that. I mean, most coaches, and I'm not saying Mullen doesn't care about his players, but most coaches care about their players enough and respect their players enough. Again, you're recruiting these kids to come play for you, so you're going to respect them enough and say, hey, you know, we didn't play our A game, but we did. We were playing with. I would have been okay if Mullen said, hey, we were obviously down some key players, some star players. It was that next man up mentality. Maybe we're not there yet, but we're going to go this offseason. We're going to develop these guys, and we're going to give them to the point. This was a great opportunity and experience for them to play one of the best teams in the country in a big stage. You say that, awesome, perfect. But to say these are practice team players and they didn't care, we didn't care. The last meaningful game we played was 11 days ago. Wow, what kind of message does that send to the rest of your team too?
Yeah, you nailed it there.
Yeah, it's just it blows my mind. But yeah, so I'm sure as a Georgia fan, you took a little pride in that, took a little pleasure in that, and you know, I think with everything they've lost for sure, Georgia is the heavy favorite to win the East again, and honestly, nothing's going to please me more to see after what Mullen has said than for Georgia to maybe murder them down in Jacksonville next October.
There's no game I'm looking forward to more than the cocktail party. That's what happened. I'm pretty sure Kirby's going to have that circled, so it should be a good one. Yeah,
no doubt about it. I'm looking forward to it myself, and I'm not necessarily a fan of either team. So, no, that's gonna be a huge game. So, last thing I guess I'll leave you on, Sam, before we head out, I'm gonna, like I said, hit the rest of the chat here. You know, give me a little bit of a brief preview here. You're going to open with Clemson next year, first game of the year with your Dogs. I mean, unless there's something else you want to talk about, but kind of your thoughts going into that one. You talk about a team that's going to lose a lot. Clemson's another one of those teams that's going to be losing a lot from this squad.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a hell of a game. I could see it being a shootout on. DJs look pretty good for them, and then I think the offense on our team has the potential to be a strength next year. It's crazy to think. We lose a lot of our guys in the secondary. That's probably my biggest concern. We're losing basically all our corners. We'll have like a safety returning, but yeah, we're gonna have to hope that some of these young guys that we recruit in the secondary, really step up, because they're going to immediately with Clemson.
100%.
Pretty sure they return most of their receivers, but yeah, it'll be a great challenge.
No, 100%. Justin Ross, right? He got injured like back in the preseason.
Yeah, right. I didn't know if he was coming back or not. He's a great receiver, and they have a couple young guys to complement them as well.
Yeah, we got him. We got Nagata as well, and so yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see this be a shootout. We're finally getting to see a good quarterback battle between Clemson and Georgia. So Daniels and Uyunglele, and yeah, it's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, for sure. And we return like all our receivers too. So.
Well, I was gonna say, you hit the nail on the head earlier talking about the chemistry that Daniels and that continuity just within the coaching staff. And then Daniels with his wide receivers in that offense. I mean, they sputtered at times this year, mostly because they didn't have Daniels in their center the whole time. You give them a whole offseason with no quarterback questions, no quarterback controversy, and this Georgia team has the chance to be a completely different breed and separate themselves from the rest of the pack early in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. Pickens should be an All-American. Hopefully we'll return all our running backs. I mean, the offensive line is really the biggest question. If that comes together, I feel really good about it.
I'm with you 100%, and I'm genuinely looking forward to it. So, but hey, well, Sam, I'm going to hit the rest of the chat here. But hey, thanks so much for calling in, and I will definitely talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you good. Again soon, man.
You got it, man. Take care.
Yep, you too.
All right, guys, I'm going to hit the rest of the chat now. We've got a lot of callers today. Let me tell you what. Last few live streams we haven't had as many callers as we've had tonight, but I'm so glad we have. So thank you all for who called in today. Sam, again, go follow him if you haven't already, at All College Football, All CFB, under the description below is down there over on Instagram and Twitter. Do the same for us, at Gridiron Expert on Instagram and at Gridiron Expert on Twitter. But let's go ahead and take a look at the chat here before we wrap up. Hunter Shin, good night, my man. United States beat Finland. Playing Canada for gold tomorrow night. How about that? Got our youth hockey team taking care of business. I love to see it. So, Hunter, hey, have a good night, man. Always good talking to you. And we'll definitely talk here soon. Stephen Smith, you're probably long gone by now. I'm scrolling all the way up to the top. We're going to work our way down. But, hey, Sam, right back at you. Good chat. You have a good night, too. Definitely talk soon, for sure. But Stephen Smith, if you're still here, thank you so much again for another Super Chat donation. Same with you, Sam, for your Super Chat donation earlier. Thoughts on Dan Mullen's post-game comments? We've already hit on that. I know a lot of us have. Disgraceful. Embarrassing. Foolish. I mean, the adjectives and the words could go on and on for what I think of Dan Mullen. I don't know any coach that would say something like that. You've got your players out there. Yeah, they're the ones playing the game. At some point, the coach has to take accountability too. And to basically say, we walked into this game and we didn't care? We didn't care? What? The last meaningful game we played was 11 days ago when we played Alabama. What message does that send to the team? What message does that send to the rest of your coaching staff? If that's me, if I'm Florida, if I'm a player or a coach, and I hear my head coach say, the last meaningful game we played was 11 days ago. Our practice squad team is taking the field. Well, then why the hell are we even playing in the Cotton Bowl? Dan, why don't you opt out, coach? If you don't care about this game, let someone else step up and coach who does care about the game. Let them motivate us. Because that was pitiful. Absolutely embarrassing. No other coach in the country would have said something like that. And Dan Mullen's going to regret saying it. It's going to hurt recruiting more than he thinks. At least it would if I were a potential recruit and he was trying to go after me. I'd ask him, hey, coach, what do you mean by that? Am I just going to be another practice squad player? And knowing Dan Mullen, he'd probably say, well, yeah, at least for the first few years you will be. Not smart at all. And Steve, I saw your comment there. Hey, I really appreciate that. Goal is to try to be as unbiased and as in-depth as we can with the games and all the news going around. So again, thanks so much for stopping by, Steve, and all of your support. Really means a lot. Scroll back up to the top here, and again, slowly. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties. It comes and goes, and can't wait to get somewhere we don't have that problem. Can't wait to get somewhere we don't have the videos cutting in and out and Wi-Fi issues. And, you're in a house with a laptop and an iPad and other family members using their devices, and you know how that goes. I'm sure many of you have had that problem being in quarantine before. So I apologize for that. I'm glad we got it fixed, though. Comic Dude, again, thank you for stopping by. We talked to you a little bit earlier about a natty shootout. Grayson, didn't talk much about Baylor. We're going to hit that next time. Always a great time talking with you. And again, thank you so much for calling and all the support. Definitely, you and Scott, I swear, you and Scott are probably the two most knowledgeable people on Baylor sports, especially football, Baylor athletics, period, that I know. So next time, all Baylor, all the time. But again, Grayson, thanks so much for calling in. Paul Harkin, good to see you. Always good to see you. I know it was earlier. You might not still be here either. Andrew Mueller, too. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for subscribing, Andrew. And again, guys, if you're new here, if you watch it now, you watch it later, subscribe to us, Gridiron Expert. We've got college football content year-round, 24/7. News, predictions, analysis, website content, Patreon content, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. And we got merchandise now. How about that? Try to rep it as much as we can. But Andrew, thank you so much for being here. Paul, thank you so much for being here. Emperor of Rome, thank you so much for being here. Always good to have you. The top moderator here in the Gridiron Expert chat. Michael Hogg, I'm doing really good. I'm doing really good, and I really hope that your year is as good as mine, at least as of right now. Hope your year is off to a great start, Michael. We'll talk some more on Twitter. 100% we'll talk more on there. But I hope you're doing well and that your 2020 wrapped up swimmingly, too. Eddie Rose, who do I think Missouri's quarterback is next year? How can it not be Connor Bazelak? How can it be anybody else? The dude doesn't light it up necessarily, but the guy was, what, a freshman? Wasn't he a freshman? And did amazing. Played great. Again, he's not going to light it up. He's got a good deep ball. He's accurate. More of a game manager. But, again, he was just a freshman. He'll take a better step forward in year 2. So, I don't see how it can be anybody else unless Eli Drinkwitz decides to pull a curveball on us. I mean, I just don't see how it could be anybody else. Everybody get into it. Grayson, Hunter, Scott, all talking about some good basketball stuff here. Scott, man, I'm telling you, knowledgeable in just about every field there is. I love it. Walter, what is going on? You left a comment on our playoff predictions in the on Facebook for NFL. I need to go take a look at that. I don't remember posting any NFL playoff predictions on Facebook unless it was old. Either someone else did that runs my account, and if so, I'll have a word with them, or if not, it was a different page. But I'll go take a look at it. But I appreciate it one way or another. Thank you so much for the support, and we're going to talk some NFL football soon. At least that's the plan. I know we usually focus on college, but playoffs are right around the corner. The Super Wild Card Saturday, Super Wild Card Weekend is coming our way this Saturday. And I think the Chiefs are the heavy favorite in the AFC. How can they not be? Over on the NFC, NFC is more wide open. I'm more excited about the NFC side of the playoffs than I am about the AFC. I don't know anybody that can stop the Chiefs. NFC, Packers look good. Saints look good when they're fully healthy. Seahawks should not be messed with. You got the Bucks, who, yes, are a 5 seed, have to travel to Washington, who is the great feel-good story in college football this year. You've got Ron Rivera battling cancer. You have Alex Smith, who was told he might die, might get his leg amputated, might never play again, and now he comes back in and leads the Washington football team, who all offseason have been dealing with this name change, lead them to the brand new team to the playoffs. I mean, that's unbelievable. So they're playing Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, a guy you cannot underestimate with his new team. Different Brady in the playoffs. We all know that. So that's your top 5 seeds there. I don't expect much out of the Bears. You know, they've done 7 teams now. Don't expect much out of Chicago. And then the Rams. You know, when they're fully healthy, their defense can be one of the best in the NFL. And if Jared Goff is hot, he's tough to beat. So the NFC side to me is wide open. Honestly, I don't see Washington making a run. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see Washington or Chicago making a run to the divisional round or anywhere past that. But the other 5 teams, that includes LA at number 6, the Rams. they are all Super Bowl contenders. No doubt in my mind. So NFC is going to be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. AFC, Chiefs are the heavy favorite. If you're looking for a team that can take them down, it is the Bills. The Bills, and it's the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers are a little overrated right now. Steelers are going to struggle. Would not surprise me to see them drop their first game at home to Cleveland, who I love to see in the playoffs. Love to see that. Titans are pretty good, but they're not going to be good enough to take down the Chiefs. Ravens certainly aren't going to be. We saw how that worked out earlier in the year on Monday Night Football. So it's Chiefs, Bills, Browns for me in the AFC. And I don't know anybody that can stop Patrick Mahomes. So would love to see the Chiefs and Packers, though, a Super Bowl I, the first ever Super Bowl. Rematch of that in Super Bowl 55. That'd be pretty cool. We'll talk more on that later, though. Reckon, who is the best coach in the non-Power 5? Who's the best coach in the Group of 5? Scott? Luke Fickell? Reckon says Billy Napier. I don't really know if I had to go with Billy Napier. I think he's great. I think I got to agree with Scott. How can you not go with Luke Fickell, who has back-to-back, 11-win seasons, back-to-back, double-digit win seasons at Cincinnati. Took them to a New Year's Six bowl game. Should have beat Georgia. Nearly beat Georgia. I don't know how you can go against him. So I think I go with Luke Fickell right now. Napier's up there. Bill Clark's up there. Trying to go through all different conferences. Jamie Chadwell. If you group BYU in there, Kalani Sitake did a great job. Jeff Monken did a great job. So many great Group of 5 coaches, guys. Group of 5 teams that don't get enough attention or respect, but they do. They deserve it. So many good ones out there. And what cracks me up, too, is when you've got a Power 5 school that hires a Group of 5 coach, they freak out. They say, oh, no, we're taking a guy from a lower conference, a lower level. He can't win in the SEC. He can't win in the Big Ten. What a horrible hire. Is it, though? If you can win consistently at the Group of 5 level, you started somewhere. You started as a coordinator somewhere, started as a GA somewhere. I don't know where you started, where you came from. But if you're winning consistently at a Group of 5 school, like Louisiana's doing, like Army's doing, like Coastal Carolina did, like BYU usually does, like Cincinnati's doing, you can win at a Big Ten or an SEC school. You can win at a Power 5 school. If you're bringing in recruiting well at a Group of 5 school, developing that talent to the point where you're competing at a high level, you can win at a Power 5 school. You absolutely can. So I think it's funny when Power 5 guys freak out about that. But these guys, they succeed somehow. They succeeded somehow. They didn't get to this point by luck. They can do it there. They can do it at a bigger school. Let's see what else we've got here in the chat. Everybody's kind of logging off, and I don't blame you. Walter, the Facebook page is called The Gridiron. That might not be me. I don't think that's me, at least. I don't think we've put anything out on Facebook in a hot minute. So, but I'm going to go take a look. Maybe we'll share our own predictions on all of our social media accounts, and would love to get your takes on those for sure. Blake writes, Bama Ohio State prediction video. Our Bama Ohio State prediction video comes out Wednesday. We are meeting with our editors tomorrow. Get some nice graphics, nothing too fancy, but the nice graphics and stuff like that laid out for our videos for this week. We're going to have a national championship prediction video Wednesday. We will have another national championship related video on Friday. We'll take a few days off. We'll watch the title game Monday. Next week, starting Tuesday, we'll get back to a more consistent posting schedule. This week's kind of hectic as it is, trying to get everything grouped together, especially for the off-season coming up. So, again, prediction video for the national championship Wednesday, another national championship video Friday. We'll take about 3 days off. We'll be on Twitter. We'll be on the chat on YouTube, so make sure you're following us there if you're not already. We'll be talking through there. And then after the national championship, we'll come out with a recap. We'll come out with a full season recap. We'll look at surprise teams. We'll look at disappointing teams. We're going to talk about FCS teams. Got a lot to cover. So, yeah, we're going to get you covered there. So this week's a little sporadic. Weekend won't be too exciting. Next week, boom, we're all over it. All over it. And let's see here. Wrapping it up. Doggy, BYU isn't actually in the group. No, they're not in the Group of 5. I know they're independent. I know that. A lot of people group them as a group of 5 team. I think I read something. It was saying that had it worked out for BYU, they could technically be classified as the highest ranked group of 5 team. I know they wouldn't be a conference champion because they're not in a conference. But if BYU was the 8th ranked team in the country and Cincinnati was the 10th ranked team in the country, and it came down to who gets a New Year's Six bowl game, it would have been BYU if I read and understood that correctly. Maybe they put both of them in. Maybe BYU, they would have slipped in there somewhere. But I know they're not technically group of 5, but they're an independent, but people kind of classify them in that group of 5 category. It's weird. I don't get it either. Zach, when do I think the playoff will get expanded? It's inevitable at this point. They have said they don't plan on expansion, Zach, for till 26, 27. There's some long contract where they're like, we're not going to expand. But I feel like there's a way around that. After seeing how bad the committee did this year, and after seeing how frustrated people are with the 14 playoff, no one likes it. It's not a playoff. It's not even close to being a playoff. So people are getting fed up with it. I think they're going to be ready to move on very soon. So it'll be gone soon. No doubt about it. I think you can have expansion by 2025. It should happen as early as next year because expanding is not hard to do. It's not difficult to do at all. They make things so much more complicated than it needs to be. We could have expansion. We could have an 8-team playoff in place for the 2021 season. No doubt about it. Won't happen, but they could do it. But I think 2025, to me, would be the goal, the what you need to be eyeing if they can get around that contract. Scott, Baylor hired strength and conditioning coach from LSU. So the hires just keep rolling in for Baylor. I love that. They're using those LSU connections. Great job there. Doggy, will there be a recap for the bowl games? Yes, in a way. We're going to have a season recap on Wednesday, next Wednesday. We're going to recap the national championship. We're going to recap the season kind of as a whole, how we did on predictions, some of the best games we watched, all that good stuff. That'll be next Wednesday. Bowl games will be included in that. Hey, Scott, have a good night, my man. Thank you so much for stopping by, being here all night with us, and love discussing with you. Love all the updates. Love all the news you bring us, both national and Baylor. And, again, I really, really appreciate all the support. Last two here. Jack Cohen transferred to Notre Dame. I must have missed that. Not sure how you feel about it. Cohen's got talent. I'm not going to lie. He's got it. It's there. Needs to be built up. Wisconsin was never the place for him, though. Wisconsin's not the place you go, to me, if you're some elite quarterback. They need one. Mertz can do it, but they're a run-heavy team. They're a bruising team up front, and that was never going to happen with a great quarterback. So Cohen at Notre Dame, he's going to have to fight for it. You say you doubt he'll start. I doubt he'll start too. It's going to take some time, but he will fight for that job. And if he impresses Brian Kelly, might get his shot. I like that place better than Wisconsin. And Terry Wilson entering the transfer portal. John, I think it was about time. Wilson has kind of, to me, underperformed at Kentucky. Last year he was hurt. Can't help that. This year he has had a horrible bounce-back year, very mediocre at best, even though they did get the bowl win. The year before his injury led him to a 10-win season. That was great, but they did that mostly behind the defense and Benny Snell. So, it was good. It was time for him to transfer. I know it's going to be a second transfer of his career. Transferred to Kentucky. Now he's transferring again. Someone's going to get a decent dual-threat quarterback. They're going to get a game manager. He's nothing exciting, nothing flashy, but he did his job at Kentucky. He did it well. And someone else will get a guy that has SEC experience and can do just enough to hopefully get them to a bowl game or, maybe slightly contend for a conference title, depending on where he goes. Reckon, Super Bowl prediction, Saints and Colts, rematch of Super Bowl 54. I'd love it, and I'd love it to see the Colts as a 7 seed, led by Phillip Rivers, a guy who I have so much respect for. Love Phillip Rivers. He's a guy that could go down as one of the best quarterbacks to never win a Super Bowl. Would love to see him get in there, especially as the 7 seed. So the Colts, never been much of a Colts fan, but I'm making an exception for 2021. And last question, Zach. Texas, hiring Steve Sarkisian. Fantastic hire. One of the best of the offseason. You're bringing a guy in that has head coaching experience at Washington and USC. You're bringing a guy in that has a brilliant offensive mind, knows how to develop quarterbacks, knows how to run, not an air raid offense, but knows how to run a very solid passing offense, balanced offense, and he's got Nick Saban ties now. You're down in the South, you can say, I have head coaching experience. I coached with Nick Saban, and if he wins the national title on Monday, that just helps his odds even more when it comes to bringing 5-star talent to Austin. So a great hire by Texas. They have to be patient with him, though. He's not going to win a Big 12. I don't think he is going to win a Big 12 title in year one. He's not going to make the playoff in year one. You've got to give these coaches time. Give Sarkisian 2 years. Year one, trial run. Win 8 or 9 games. Win 10 games. Make the Big 12 title. Whatever. Don't set your expectations so high in year one. Raise them in year two. He'll get there in year two, and by year three, that's when Texas really could be back. That's when they could be back. But I love the hire. It was fantastic. Sarkisian was very young when he took his head coaching jobs at Washington, USC in the past. He has matured. He has learned. Reminds me a little bit of Lane Kiffin in a way. He's gotten a lot better over the years. And he's the guy that could really go a long way. Not to mention Sarkisian also has NFL ties. What more would you want if you're a recruit? So, fantastic hire, A-plus hire. And Texas, I do think, can be back in a matter of a few years. So, guys, hey, listen, thank you all so much for joining us today. Nearly 2 hours right here on the Gridiron Expert, but I wanted to make sure we got that. We haven't posted in a while, haven't done a live stream in a while, and the posts are going to be kind of sporadic over the next week or so with us trying to get everything set up and ready to go. So, again, I want to thank you all so much for watching us here and contributing, whether you called, whether you hopped on the chat. You contributed to the super chat. Can't thank you enough for that. Every single bit helps, so thank you so much for that. And again, guys, National Championship prediction comes out Wednesday. Another National Championship video out on Friday. And then next week, we've got a whole slate of content coming for you following the National Championship game on Monday. It's going to be a great week of college football. A lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement, and we're hoping to end it on a high note. So again, thank you all so much for stopping by. Have a great rest of your night. We'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert. Good night, everybody.